I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and we are here on the Know Your Why podcast with Austin Linney. Austin Linney is a former service industry veteran of 20 plus years, turned serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, mindset, and business coach. He's the host of the weekly podcast, Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. And when he's not building businesses, growing expansive network of who's who in the leading industries, he's providing massive value each week with his podcast and helping his coaching clients achieve a breakthrough. If you're an entrepreneur wanting to start a business, wanting to improve your mindset through coaching, or you just want to have a heart-to-heart conversation of how to overcome the odds, Austin can help you get where you want to go. Austin, thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it, dude. It's always really funny to hear what we wrote for my bio.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like I do so much that I need to update it weekly. In my opinion, oh, that's not. We're not even It's just.
Yeah.
I think
as I'm reading it, I'm like, I know there's more than this. I know
there's more than that. You know what's interesting? I had a mentor of mine who came on the podcast. He never does a podcast ever. And what's interesting, because he never does a podcast, he's extremely high performance coach. He was actually super nervous. Like he tried to cancel because he's a person that only talks about what he's doing in the moment. Like he doesn't talk about and so he said something to me and I said, would you want me to talk about your bio? And he goes, it's fucking meaningless. He goes, it's meaningless because who I am is defined by my failures.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great place to start for me, because who I'm defined by is the 15 times that I've had to blow up my entire life over and over again.
Yeah.
So, action is an amazing thing, but it's also can get you in trouble. And so, but I'd rather be in action than inaction. And I think that's the key to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I want you to expand on that, but I think that a lot of people get held back by their fears and things like that, myself included, in that, it's like, oh, what if this doesn't work? Well, what if it does? And I just,
well, here's the deal. The actual problem is they're not held back by their actual fears. They're held by the fears that they have of what other people think that they think.
Yeah.
And so I'll elaborate and I'll expand on that. I have a thing I do with my coaching clients, and I say, listen, if you did this for 60 days straight, like if you did these things, how would you feel? Oh man, I would feel fucking great. I'd be locked in. Business would be great. My relationship with my wife would be great. I'd be healthy. Okay, well, what's the negative if you went all in on these things? Well, there isn't one. Okay, then what are we talking about? Right? And so it's those things. And so I'll start my story. I grew up, my dad was a doctor, a dentist, and we started making a little more money when I was a kid. And, you don't really know what that is, but you're like, damn, the houses are getting bigger. And then I started living next to NBA stars, on a golf course. And what's interesting? I was talking about on a podcast the other day, everything that I was shunned for, everything that I was talked down about in school is what they champion me for now. Creative, loud, not engaged, a go-getter. Right? School didn't really do anything for me. I had a photographic memory, so I never studied. I just literally, when I say photographic, I've recorded 350 episodes, and I could tell you the conversation on my 7th one right now. I could walk it out in your mind. It's how my mind works. And so when I was 17, I was getting in a lot of trouble, and my parents basically said to me, it's either military school or it's you need to move to Beaumont, Texas, which is in the country where my parents grew up. And you got to understand, I lived in my school had 5,000 people in my class. It was fancy, Rolls Royces and and so I was like, well, I'll move to Beaumont. Like, that sounds good. Like, it's only like 3 hours away. No big deal. So I moved there 17, middle of my junior year, terrible time to move, and I went to a school that had 90 people in my class, like, and they had like boats behind their trucks, and they were wearing camo, and it was really what I found out very quickly is, I might have been having trouble in school. What my parents were masking was they were getting a divorce, and that came to me like 5 months later, and through either their miscommunication of the divorce or my own insecurities, I decided to label myself as the reason that my parents got divorced. And it really kind of is the root for everything that precedes the foreseeable future that I'm about to talk about. And, my parents grew up in the restaurant business, and I was indoctrinated into the restaurant business. And if you don't know anything about the restaurant business of the 90s, it was heavily fueled by alcohol and drugs. Yeah. And so started out, drinking, and then using cocaine heavily, just on the weekends, stuff like that. And then that proceeded to, because that's not enough, especially with a hard charging personality like I have already. We decided to start doing methamphetamines. What happens is you're taking that on a Friday, Saturday, and the Friday, Saturday bleeds into Monday, Tuesday, and then it bleeds into you're not sleeping. And so in the moment, I was not working. I was working, bills were getting paid, nothing's wrong. But decisions start happening. And, as I look back and reflect on it now, my need to be loved, basically love myself, was what I was looking for. And I think as I do work and I'm a coach for other people, I think I posterize and glamorize my childhood more than I think. And I think that my mom is a tough lady. That's how she's been her whole life. And she's a loving lady, but she's a tough lady. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of me that realizes that I never really knew how to be loved. And as I look back on my story now, and so, the breaking point for me, the first kind of big aha moment was, it was my birthday, and I was, lying to my parents constantly, and while I couldn't be there, and, sitting at a table, doing drugs and on my birthday, and kind of in a dark place. And I wound up staying up for 8 days straight, not eating, taking Xanax at night, trying to go to bed, just not eating. And I think I lost like 25 pounds. And an ex-girlfriend saw me, and she was like, dude, you look like shit. Your pants are falling off. Like, get your shit together. Like, I was seeing rabbits. There was no rabbits anywhere, but I was like, hallucinating. Right. And I wound up going home, and I wound up packing my shit, and I moved to Austin. Like, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this. So I quit the hard drugs, like, right then. I don't know how, but I was just like so over it. But that didn't mean I quit the drinking. And you, like, they say that you trade one addiction for another. And then, I'm up in Austin, I'm working at a new restaurant, and we're drinking a bunch. And one night that will forever change me is there was a bar that stayed open late for us, and it was up north, so probably like 15 minutes north of where I live, just right off the highway. Mm-hmm. And I wound up drinking way too much one night, and got in my car, which I don't suggest, and wound up 10 minutes north when I was supposed to be going south. And I wound up running my car into somebody's yard and running over their mailbox. And for some reason, I jumped out of the car and threw the guys my ID. I don't really understand why I did that. And then just started running down the road, and wound up getting picked up by a hitchhiker. I got hitchhiked. And what I've only shared once before is I was so taken aback when I slammed into the mailbox that I shit myself. So I'm literally like, have shit on myself, getting picked up with this guy. I'm telling him what happened, and I tell him that I have $600 in my pocket. And so when he dropped me off in front of my apartment, he punched me and knocked me out, and wound up taking the $600 from me. But the scary thing is I went into the apartment thinking and waking up the next morning thinking it was all a dream.
Oh, no. But you had given your ID to the
I'd given my ID. I lost $600. My car
yeah.
was gone. I had to work 14 hours the next day. But then I woke up, walked into the bathroom, and all my clothes were in the tub. And I was like, oh shit, I don't think this is
so, something's not right. Yeah.
So as you know, I got my shift covered that morning. You're piecing it together. I worked for a couple of days, and then I called a buddy and I said, look, dude, car's totaled in the pound. I had to go in to talk to the cops. I kind of got out of it. Like I told him, like, I was, it was like, really got lucky. Like, hey, I fell asleep. Like I freaked out. They didn't really believe it. Long story short, I got a leaving the scene of an accident ticket 4 years later in the mail. So, that's how that goes. But I still, got out of it. I don't suggest anybody do what I did. Please don't. But he came and picked me up. And I had a bag of clothes, and I had nothing. I had no car. I had nothing. And I went to my parents' house and proceeded to keep drinking. Like I just was not, like, I didn't get it. And I was going out, I was going to weddings, and like 4 weeks went in, and my mom just like threw my stuff out on the porch when I got home one day. And she was like, I'm done. Not only am I done, your dad cut off all your credit cards and everything. So you have nothing anymore. And so that was the big reality. And I cried for like a good, couple hours, 21-year-old crying like a baby, realizing that they weren't going to support this behavior anymore. And the same friend that came and got me from Austin picked me up, and as friends do, let me whine for a little bit, and then finally said, like, hey dude, enough's enough. Like, let's piece this back together. Let's figure something out. I said, dude, I got no job. I got nowhere to live. He goes, let's just take it one day at a time. So I'm sitting at the house, and he says, listen, I know somebody that's a construction guy that can hire you on. And he said, so he picked me up every morning at 5 a.m. and he dropped me off at 6 o'clock. And I laid tile and brick in Texas in July. And it was very hot. It was very not whatever. It's not anything I would suggest for anybody. But I had nowhere to live, and my friend's brother actually allowed me to stay in a closet. And when I'm not joking, like, it's an actual closet. It's not a metaphor. Like the closet underneath the stairs on a single mattress and my bag of clothes. And I lived off of ham sandwich and ramen noodles. Yeah. And I wound up saving enough money to buy my grandmother's old car and wound up getting my bartending job back, and then proceeded to get an apartment and start making money again. And I metaphysically have been running from that closet for my entire life.
Yeah. Wow. That's an amazing story. And I mean, thank you for sharing, because I know that's personal stuff. And sounds like you have some good parents, because I think, they gave you tough love when you needed it. And I think one of the things that strikes me there, though, is that, you said you were, 21 when all of this is happening, and you then were able to, sort of turn it around and create this sort of amazing life going forward, which I think is.
It only took 20 years after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
yeah.
It only took another success. 17 years. Yeah.
But I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? And it's like you hit that bottom, and you talk about the closet. I actually have a similar. I went through a divorce and slept on just a box spring in my friend's closet. Like, this is what it was like. In a way, I don't know if you felt this. In a way, I was like, I think maybe punishing myself. I was like, I deserve to sleep on a box spring, that kind of thing. And it's like, you get in that little bit of a hole.
What's interesting on that fact? I'll tell you this, and I think it's going to resonate with you, because I've been divorced a year now. So when COVID hit, I lost so just so everybody knows, I continue to drink for 20 more years. I've been sober for 2 years and 4 months. I've lost 70 pounds. Last year when COVID hit, I got laid off from my private equity job and got divorced in the span of 2 weeks. So it was, that happened a year ago, about a year and a month ago. My coach said something to me that will forever change my life. I got sober, and then I proceeded to stay in the marriage that wasn't serving me anymore, because I feel like I had to punish myself because you were half drunk during your marriage. Now you're sober and you think you're going to leave your wife because you got better. But like we just weren't working out. And he said something to me. He said, when are you going to pardon yourself from your life sentence?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's
powerful. And it was kind of the holy crap, because like I realized that I was like metaphorically and mentally beating myself up because I wanted something better and I think I didn't deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. It's good to hear, because I think a lot of people probably have those similar, kind of feelings. It's just like, for whatever reason, we think we don't deserve success and, whatever that might be. But it's a matter of, get kind of finding your way out, whether that is with a coach or, a mentor of some sort. I think that's, and
I think at the end of the day, it's as simple as this. I think that we have a tendency, especially in America, and I'm going to try to keep it as nice as I can, because I can go off on this, to seek comfort. Mm-hmm. And I think comfort is where we live in. Like, yes, like we become the society with technology and all this stuff. It wasn't until I joined a mastermind where dudes were doing 10x, 20x for me. And moreover, a lot of those guys were in recovery and successful, still sober. Like, when I say that I'd never been around anybody that was successful, that was sober, like I'm being dead serious. And so they gave me the space to do that. But here's the kicker. You're scared to get in that room. But what you need to understand is, by getting in that room, water finds its level. You will either rise to the occasion and you will become better by osmosis and just being around them, then not. And I tell you what, it was my mentor that changed my life. I met this guy on DMs because I heard him speak and I was like, dude, I really love this guy. And so like, we're going back and forth forever. And I would ask something and he wouldn't respond. And he was like kind of teaching me like, this is how you're going to add value to me, like figure it out.
Right.
And he said, listen, I got 15 minutes. And he lives in Sacramento. And I'm like, done. I'm on a plane. Let's go. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't give a fuck. 8 a.m. Yes, I'll be there. So I flew there to go meet him. And we met at a coffee shop, and a very busy guy. And he said, he looked me dead in the face after talking to him for like a minute. And he said, listen, you and I, and by the way, he's younger than me, been a millionaire since he was like 26. He said, you and I are no different. I just got started before you and had better people around me. That's it.
Yeah.
And it was that moment that everybody around me got off of the pedestal. And I put myself on my own pedestal.
Yeah.
And that's the day that I started investing in myself and realized that I had everything possible. And my friend told me this great story. And when you're changing or you're trying to get better, this is an amazing thought to have. Sometimes we don't believe in ourselves enough to change. We have to borrow the belief that others see in us long enough to change until we believe it ourselves.
That's really good.
And when I was hanging around these mentors in GoBundance and these dudes that are millionaires at 27 and 30 and 30 and 40 worth multiple millions, and they're saying, dude, you got it. Yeah. You got it. Just get out of your way. That was the confidence I needed until I filled my own bucket up enough to know what I was doing. But this is why this all ties into this conversation, guys. You talked about what your podcast is I truly believe that defining your why, greater than a transaction, greater than money, greater than a thing, allows you to operate in a space regardless of the external forces.
Yeah.
And that's where we have it twisted. Well, I'm going to do this when the time is right. I'm going to do this when I get here.
Yeah.
I'm going to, no. My favorite line that I came up with is, I don't move with the wind. I make the motherfucking wind.
It's perfect. It's perfect. It's hard to be that gives you, sort of your own sense of power, right? Mm-hmm. That you are creating opportunities, right? It's like,
the only reason I got sober, the only reason that I truly started changing was when I read the book Extreme Ownership. Mm-hmm. and realize that I'm a CEO of, part owner in like 3 companies. I don't care if my employees messed up or not. It's my fault. Right. We didn't communicate properly. Yeah. When you live your life that way, it's really easy.
Yeah.
It's only one person to look at. He's right in the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. We talked a little bit before we started recording about how my sort of life as a veterinary surgeon and now transitioning to add in real estate investor is there's a lot of correlation. And when you say that, and I read Extreme Ownership, it is a great book and sort of empowering, but it's a funny correlation is that like I train residents and interns and things and students, but I always tell them at the end of the day, it's my name on that chart, right? So I'm going to let you do things, but it's always me, right? That's my patient. It's always me. And it will always be me. That's kind of it. And so it's
because who you are and what you stand for, your why, meaning the reputation that you see and you live in is so great to you that you refuse to let other people dictate whether or not it's being blown in the wind.
Right. Yeah, no, the only way that we can be, respected in whatever field it is by always putting your best forward and just, like I said, taking that ownership. It's just anything worth doing is worth doing it the right way and not cutting corners. And it just.
Well, think about it from this context. This is something I've been thinking about a lot. And so I just signed a new coaching client yesterday. Very powerful woman. Like, and like you have those like self, like she's a crusher. Right. And like you have these things and you're like, why, but here's my thing. My name, the humans that I coach that are walking around on this earth, my name is all over them.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. I'm all in. When I'm all in, like I'm all in. And if you carry that energy with everything that you do and you're a great fit and you're not just doing it for the money, then you can't help because they're already bought into you. You're bought into them. Boom, we move together. Same thing in business with business partners.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that we do that we're like half in.
Yeah.
But like when I commit to somebody and I get in their life, like I'm in it, baby. Like I'm so in it because I'm predicated on their success. But more importantly, you know what true marketing is? Results. That's it.
Right.
They're not fabrications.
Yep.
Like you are a good surgeon and you're good at teaching. So why would you do anything else that are away from that besides the other things to create freedom? Like you're not going to like, it's as simple as this. I tell people all the time, like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go be a perfume salesman at Abercrombie? Like, this is the path that I've chosen. And guess what? When I get out on that ledge and I have a hard day, I have to remind myself that life is a choice. I chose this. This is what I signed up for. Right. If you wanted it easy and you wanted to go work for somebody, that can be obtained.
Yeah.
But here's my bigger issue in America is that we say that everybody needs to be out on that ledge. It's ridiculous. No, you don't. Right. That takes, dude, you can be 3rd in command, 6th in command at a company and make a great salary and go coach your kids. But we've been fed this BS lie. Dude, my girlfriend all the time, she's like, I don't understand what's going on. She goes, you're having 7 different conversations at the same time about podcast, coaching, your 3 businesses. She goes, how do you keep them all? I love it. It fits me. I'm a builder. And guess what? When I'm done building, I'm over it. Like I'm literally over it. Like I just don't even care. But I love the process of it. And so I've had to tap into that aspect. But here's the kicker is I've surrounded myself with amazing people that are great at what they do. And I stay in my lane. And I read a book and it's amazing. There's 2 amazing books because I've been studying the art of like investing, like why people do what they do. Like I love the psychology of it. Yeah. It's called Psychology of Money and Behavioral Investing. And he says, the reason that you are unsuccessful in business is that you believe that you are fucking special. He said, the problem is that you think that you need all the credit. Your level of compensation is dictated on how much you feel like you need the credit.
That's good.
The product, the system, what you're doing in results is what's special. That's it.
Right. It's just whatever you're creating, right? That's what it's the point, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I said my name's on the chart. My name's on the chart from a responsibility standpoint, but I'm not trying to get like applause from anyone.
Yeah.
Just it needs to be right. When I'm done with something, it needs to be right, or why did I bother doing it?
Everybody asked me, well, I've actually had one person ask me, but he really illuminated a big part of like, nobody's ever asked me. It was Lee Yoder when I was on his podcast. He said, what gave you, like, how did you get out of that closet? Like metaphorically and like physically, how did you? And I said, no matter what's going on in my life, my parents taught me from day one, default is go to work.
Yeah.
Go to work. They talk about sales cures all. You're whining, you're complaining, you don't have enough. Go to work.
Yep.
I've got young coaching clients who are ex-recovery dudes who are finishing up real estate school, entrepreneurship school. And he's talking about needing rest. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? 23 years old. I was like, you're talking about these assignments for the past 3 weeks. I was like, why don't you just spend like 12 hours and get them done and be done with them? Like, go to work. And he's like, and he did it. And he's like, oh my God, I just freed up like 3 weeks of my life. And I'm like, yeah, because you went to work. Right. We're sitting around pontificating on what's going to happen instead of just making it happen, instead of just putting in the work. Because I'm letting you know, when you're around people like me and you and other people that are high achievers, I don't give a shit about your excuses. It doesn't matter. That's why, look, maybe I'm a weird person. That's why I love 75 hard. I love it. I think it's ridiculous because we had an ice storm 3 weeks ago that's never happened in Texas in the history of the world. No water for 4 days, no power for 2 weeks. I mean, everything. Okay. I still worked out.
Right.
Yeah. Like, are you telling me that like in college, right? I was kind of like lazy and drank a lot in college. I wouldn't go to school when it rained. Like, I'm like, oh, it's raining today. Yeah. You can't do that in life, right? One of my favorite books in the entire world is called Slight Edge. And he talks about the problem with daily habits is this one key thing. Those little things that you do every day, compounded over time, get you exactly where you want to go, are really easy to do, that they're really easy not to do as well. Eating that hamburger, not working out is not going to kill you. But over time, that behavior is going to get you exactly where you belong.
After years of that, it will do exactly that, will potentially kill you. But I actually think you just, I don't know if you meant to make this point, but you said in college, I was lazy and didn't go to class. It was raining and stuff, but it brings up a good point in that it's not too late, right? It's, you can change, that's where mindset coaches like yourself come in. It's like, you can change some of those beliefs. And I think, I love the go to work thing because that's been me virtually my whole life. I feel like I've used work as a way to get myself out of, when you're having low times and whatever that is. It's just like, okay, I go to work and that gives me focus. But I think you can also sometimes hold yourself back with that. You have to, and that's where the why comes in. It's like, why am I going to work? What is that, is that getting me to my purpose? Making sure that the work is something that you love, and you're, sort of, like you say, it gives you energy, and it doesn't feel like work because you're like, this is just fun to do. This is awesome. I love what I'm doing.
This is, not funny enough. I have my meetup next week in Nashville, the one I'm putting on, and I'm like forming, like, I don't write anything down. So I'm like forming my speech, and like, there's a lot of points there. And what's interesting, right, is like, and I'll just run through a couple things, like briefly homeless, drug addict, alcoholic, divorced, laid off, lost 26 grand in a business, like all these things, right? There's like a list of like 7 of them. And something I keep thinking about, right? Because I'm 38 now. You know what I always had? The opportunity.
Yeah.
Every time. The opportunity to change. And that's all we need. Here's the thing. Everybody, Everybody is out there chasing purpose and passion. Oh, what's my passion? What's my purpose? Fuck all that. Here's what you need to chase. What gives you energy?
Yeah.
I have done, thanks to my girlfriend, I have done a little astrology learning about like Sagittarius and all this, like fire and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I get my energy off of conversations like this, feeding into other people. So why wouldn't I do more of that? Well, that's what I do for a living. And so the whole premise to my podcast is Construct Your Life is everybody's out here building a business and then building a lifestyle. No. You build a lifestyle that you want to create, and then you build a business around it.
Yeah.
Like, stop trying to be like everybody else. Guys, this is how I operate, and this is a true story. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday I do more on those days. I think Monday's my coaching day and meetings. I think I have 16 Zoom calls on Monday. 2 weeks ago, I had 56 Zoom calls in 1 week. But guess what? That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Thursday, I do some podcasts and I write a book. And then Friday, it's like, I'm going to play golf. But I hack myself. And sometimes I work on Saturday. And then I was in Costa Rica and I'm looking at real estate and they're like, stop, relax. And I'm like, no, I am relaxing. I'm looking at real estate. This is what I do. Right. So everything that's in my life is stuff that gives me energy. So if I do that over and over again, then it's good. We're good.
Yeah. It keeps you, it keeps you going because you're enjoying it. It's giving you energy because it's not something that you're like, oh man, I don't want to get up and have to do this today. It's like, no, I want to get up and talk, it's like.
Well, you know what? Aubrey Marcus and Ed Milet had an amazing podcast, and they talked about the simple choice that we are doing all these things, or things are happening to us, and we don't realize that our entire life is a choice. And what I mean by that is you could not eat and you would die, but that's a choice. You could not drink water and you would die, but that's still your personal choice. He goes, the problem is that we live in this society where we're doing stuff and then we're complaining about it and realizing that we had the choice to show up on this call. We had the choice to be in a bad mood. We had the choice to not work out this morning and feel like shit. We had a choice to eat that burger or drink that margarita too late. Yep. You're acting like things are happening to you. You're the one choosing the fucking thing. Wake the fuck up.
Yeah. We're not victims. You need to drive it. You need to drive the bus and do what you want to do.
And at the end of the day, the reason that I can see this so clearly is because for 20 years, I blamed myself for my parents' divorce. Mm-hmm. So my specialty is victimhood. I can bunker. And let me tell you something. There's nothing, and I mean nothing. I don't give a fuck about drug addiction, homelessness, none of those things. There's nothing that is harder to break somebody out of than being a victim in your own story. Totally I call it the most gangster bunker mentality ever. And it's only somebody that's lived it for as long as I did that can stand in that bunker with them and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that's it. And my coach said something to me that changed my life. Seriously, he's an amazing human. When I first started coaching, I was like stressed out. I'm like, oh my God, this is like, what the fuck am I doing? This is so, because the first guy I ever coached, 2 minutes in, he's like, I want to leave my wife. I'm like, oh shit. This got serious. This is not like, we're not talking about real estate. Like, oh shit.
Oh, that's okay.
Somebody entrusted you with their life, but he said something to me that changed my life. Stop stressing out about coaching. You only coach what you've been through.
Yeah.
The people find you, and I see him and I'm like, oh, I got you. Like, I got you. I make my coaching clients take personality tests. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, we all had the same personality, and then so it's like, but then guess what? It all comes back to the same thing we talked about. That's living in your energy. Yep. The energy matches. And so it's easy to see it and not get stressed out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it is amazing to see, kind of when people, that's one thing for me, going through this journey recently is in terms of why I really like mindset stuff, because it's realizing that you do have control over that. You do have control over how you approach things. You do have control over everybody has feelings, that's fine, but you have control over how you react to those things and what you're gonna do with them, right? Like put those feelings to work rather than just being a victim of those feelings is kind of, I think it's been a change for me in terms of realizing, okay, I can use these tools, right? I can use these things to, kind of, it's like, well, a good example, in talking to my mom the other day, and I told her, hey, I'm doing a podcast. It's gonna, this will be cool. You'll enjoy listening to this. And she was like, how are you going to find the time for that? I don't understand the question. It's like, I understand why she asks that, but at the same time, I'm just like, no, I'm just going to do a podcast. Like,
yeah, I love it. And you know what? And here's the thing. That's the default of society, and nothing against your mom. My mom said the same thing.
Right.
My mom said the same thing to me. Now I have two.
Yeah.
And she said, because the default to everybody is, well, what's the weather? Like, I'm traveling. What's the weather going to be like?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right.
Like, you know what my girlfriend said to me the other day? Super interesting. Why do we associate rainy weather with a bad mood? Like, rainy weather is pretty awesome. Like, like a good nap, a good walk, like that.
You can find positive in it.
We all come back to this thing of, well, it's only when if. Like, it's only when if. No, it's never going to be time. It's never going to be the right time to have a kid. It's never going to be the right time. But if you love it and you truly believe it, you will find time. I trust me. But I want to make sure that we give the most value ever, because this why subject, the theme of your podcast, is so important, because I don't think it's something people talk about enough. My why is to lift up and impact everybody that's around me, right? So if that's my why, tell me how you can beat me. Moreover, tell me how I can be done.
Yeah. There's always going to be another person to lift up. There's always going to be someone that needs that.
Do you watch football at all?
That's a funny question, because I am a huge football fan.
Okay.
I have season tickets to the Patriots. I live in LA.
You're not joking. Okay.
No.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know you were that big. I'm not that.
Yeah.
I don't really have time for that these days, but it's an interesting concept. So one of the best coaches in college football in the history, and when I was a kid, I loved Florida State. I loved their swagger. Charlie Ward, Peter Warwick, they were my dudes, man.
Yeah.
And Bobby Bowden is like way old, been coaching for like 50 years.
Yeah.
And they said, like, hey, when are you going to retire? And he's like, well, why? Right. He's like, this is what I love to do. It's what I was put on this. This is my why. And you know what he did? He quit coaching and he died like 6 months later.
Yeah.
I was listening to Andy Frisella and Tim Grover's podcast this morning, which was one of the best podcasts I've ever heard in my entire life. And Andy goes, I'm scared shitless to sell my business because I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. He goes, I don't know what these people are doing all day. He goes, I love my business. Guys, if you're in your gift, then you don't need extra energy. You don't need that extra dollar. You don't need all that shit, because you're serving the greatest and highest good of who you are. But here's the rub. We don't even do enough work on ourselves to realize what the hell that is. Because our goals and our why are actually predicated on false emotions triggered by childhood and midlife trauma.
Right. Yeah. It's just hanging on to that, whatever hurt in the past, and not figuring out what can be happiness and joy and purpose now.
The difference between a therapist and a coach? A therapist talks about where you've been. A coach talks about where you're going.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's really good.
I can see who you want to be once I've identified exactly where you want to go. And I begin talking to you in that version of yourself. And then eventually, over time, it pulls you to be that version of yourself.
Yeah. It makes total sense. I think, it's as someone who has gone to therapy before, it's a lot about what happened previously, and maybe that's why I never felt comfortable with it, because I don't I don't see myself as a victim, and I don't really want to talk about it. Like, I don't want to say, well, this was bad, and so here's my, here's my thing. It's like, well, what can we do now going forward? So I think
I was listening to Lewis Howes and this Olympic lady who'd been like Olympic gold like 6 times. Like even she started at like 32. Like it was like big.
Yeah.
And she was an anorexic for years and had eating disorders. And she went through 13 therapists. And the last one was like day 1. He's like, well, let's talk about your 13-year-old self. And she was like, listen, mother effer. She goes, I'm trying to make it to Tuesday. Like I'm trying not to kill myself right now. I'm happy to talk about my childhood when I can get back on top of my skis enough to like not want to kill myself. And it was like that aha moment in my head that was like, okay, I get it. We can handle that once mentally I'm strong enough to be there. But let's worry about today. Like, how do we fix today?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, this has been awesome, and I really could probably talk to you all day long, but I don't want to take up your whole day. I know you're a very busy person. I
got another 30 minutes, so it's all on you, man. Whatever your schedule.
Okay. Well, I do have sort of a handful of questions that I like to ask, and you actually just answered the first one without even having to be asked, and it's, what is your why? Obviously it makes sense with the podcast title. So we'll move on to number 2. But so tell me something about yourself that you're comfortable sharing. I feel like you seem like a pretty open book, but something that maybe people don't know about you, whether that's a hobby, a guilty pleasure, something coming up in the future. What would you like to get out there into the world?
It's interesting. People are asking me now, I'm 38, we're building a couple businesses. They're asking me, I had a buddy who I respect, like really respect, who knows me pretty well. And he was like, I think the back half of your life's going to be pretty interesting. He's like, I could see you getting into a bunch of different stuff. For me, travel is everything. Travel and food. Like I used to be a chef. That's kind of my thing. And I'm a master bartender. I've sold wine for 20 years. So just because I'm sober now doesn't mean I'm not still romantic about walking in vineyards in France. And I love all that aspect. So, for me, I've been getting into photography lately. I really love, like, I want to do a photography book of our travels. I've been 26 states in the last like 9 months. I think it's going to be called like Chasing Sunrises and Sunsets. Like, I love that. But I would like to I will make enough money at 60, I believe at like 50 or 60 to turn it all around. I'll still work, I'll still do businesses, but my goal is to give it all back. And what I mean, that maybe that's my time, maybe that's whatever. But one of the reasons when all this COVID happened and the riots were happening, and as I've learned more about finances and stuff, my big why is that financial education is not taught at all. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to create a fund, as I've met on the podcast amazing entrepreneurs with their kids, and I buy them like Rich Dad Poor Dad, the kids version and stuff like that. I want to create a fund to invest in middle school and high school business ideas. And I want to empower them and lift them up and tell them they're not too young. Like you have a great idea. Like let's spark this and let's see what can happen, and let's impact them that way.
I'm in, by the way, on the fund for that's actually, I think that's one of the things that's hit me too. We talked a little bit, my why is my son, but also in large part, he was the trigger for me, but the reason is more realizing how much I don't know and didn't know and isn't taught in school, in middle school or high school or college or anything. It's like, unless you specifically are pursuing finances, nobody teaches you that.
And just to direct this at you, and the reason I want to direct it at you, because I've seen it 90 times over, and I think this will be one of the most valuable statements I ever say in this entire podcast, and it's been a great one. I've met in the last year 1 million guys like you, okay? And what I mean by that is they've had a kid, and this, I'm talking to every 20-year-old out there right now. and they would give up every fucking thing that they had to know what they know now, to have put themselves in a position to spend every minute by choice with their kid.
100%.
Every fucking minute. And I'm talking to all you 18, 26-year-olds out there that you waste fucking off. And I'll be the same shit. Me too.
Yeah.
There are friends that I know that at 26 years old are already retired because they started at 17. This is a real conversation when you surround yourself with the right people and you stop worrying about going to fucking Cabo on the weekend and Instagram and get to work. Yeah. I've got a 23-year-old that is a friend of mine who owns 300 units and like 7 Airbnbs. He's retired already. Yeah. Stop fucking around, because when you get our age and you get 50 and 40, you're going to wish that you put in the work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the power of time. Nobody realizes the power of time. And it's like, that's what I want to, shout from the rooftops. It's like, I'm sure the people I work with, my residents, they're young, and it's like, you guys have time. You have 10, sometimes 20 years on me. And it's like, use it. Just do something, work now, put a little bit of money, invest a little bit of money, just start, so that you're not, find out in 10 or 20 or however many years that you're
guys, guys, here you go. You can read all the books. You can listen to all the podcasts. You can go to all the seminars. I'm going to give you the keys to life in a minute and a half. Like, literally, just do this and you'll be good. Stop being an asshole. Be nice to people. Live on less than you make. Take 15% of what you make and invest in a long-term cash flowing asset. Drink water. Eat healthy. Move your body 20 minutes a day. That's it.
It's not that hard. I mean, it's
nothing else.
It's not that hard. If you start those things early, it's it. You'll be.
You know what everybody asks me all the time? What program should I do? What workout program should I do? Doesn't matter. Yeah. You're the program.
Yeah.
There's no program. You don't need the nice shoes. There's no program. I promise you this. If for 90 days straight, you went out and walked 15 minutes in the morning and listened to a positive YouTube video, I guarantee you'll be a better person. I guarantee you'll feel better. It's not a hack. Like, it's just get out of your own way, live on less than you make, eat good, and work out. That's it.
Yeah. It's true. It's so simple, but you don't realize the power of the time you have to establish those habits when you're young. Like, when you're young, you're like, I have plenty of time to do all that stuff, but the reality is you don't have, like, and if you want to spend time when you're, young and vibrant and able to, like, do things that are active, you're not going to do that if you retire when you're 65 or 70 or whatever. It's just, that's our bodies get older, right? And it's like, you can, if you want to do that stuff, start a little bit early, and then you'll be able to be, free at 40 or whatever the case is, or 27 if you're really great at it. But still, like, plenty of time left in life, and if you start it early, just don't get into catch-up mode. That's what I've heard it so many times too. It's like, people like me, it's like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, if I had just done a few things, like little things, differently, it would have been, now would be so different, right? It would be, you wouldn't feel
don't worry, we're gonna get there soon.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
We got big plans.
It's just Austin, how can people reach you? What's the best way for them to get in touch?
The easiest way to find everything that we have going on is austinlinney.com, LINNEY. The podcast is, if you reach me on Instagram or Facebook, just DM me. I swear to God, I'll respond to everybody. It's just a Construct Your Life podcast. And then we have the Brain Dump podcast with Anthony. But yeah, I'm very active on all the platforms. And if anybody wants to reach out, sure, I'd love to hear a message and see how I can support you.
Okay. one last question. What advice would you give to people, and maybe you just did, that have sort of the same story or experiences, someone who feels like they're living your life? What advice can you give to them that could maybe help them,
The best piece of advice that I can give you is very simple, is that your story matters. And the problem with not changing is the things that we keep in the closet, the scary things, the stories we don't want to tell people. The reason that you're still where you are is because they're controlling you. The moment that you put them into the light, they don't own you anymore. When I meet somebody at an event, homeless, drug addict, alcoholic, divorced, nice to meet you, I'm Austin Linney. Well, fuck. I mean, Jesus Christ, it puts them at ease, right?
Right.
Because I own that part and it doesn't control me. It's not hidden. But I'll tell you something right now. And I believe, we've mentioned a lot of books on this podcast, but I bought this book 50 times. For any time I run into somebody, I should get an affiliate link by now. It's a book that changed my entire life. It's What You Say When You Talk to Yourself. And what you have to understand is that 90% of what we do every day is predicated on our subconscious mind operating it. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to be better, it starts with thinking better. The actions are predicated on the thoughts that dictate what we're doing, but it starts from the thoughts. And this book teaches you how to change the way of thinking, reprogram the wires in your mind. And I promise you, as one of my coaching clients said, that book should be illegal. It's so good. That's where it starts. And I promise you, if you share your story, whether it be on paper or to yourself or just with another human, and you open up, it'll allow you the space to realize that you're not in this alone. And the issue is this: in COVID times, especially in the last year, there's a lot of people out there feeling alone. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm on a podcast, the reason I'm on this podcast, the reason I have a podcast, the reason I post on social media is I want to give you the freedom to realize that you're not alone. I've got about 16 rock bottoms, and I'm sure there's still more to come, but I wear them with honor. And so I want you to step outside of your own BS and understand that you're not alone. And hopefully that message can give you the power to push forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's probably about as powerful as a way to end this podcast as you could have come up with. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate your time. I appreciate all the knowledge and value that you've given today. It's been awesome. It's been an awesome conversation. So thanks, Austin. Thanks for being on the Know Your Why podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Guys, this is what it's all about. His third interview, the man is putting himself out there. And I promise you this, and I can't wait to ask you in 6 months how much you've learned and gained. So if you've thought about it, just make sure you put yourself out there. It doesn't have to be a podcast. It could be on social media. It could be in a blog, whatever works for you, just do it. Because see, and this is how it works. I'm going to have Jason on my podcast now. And now see, he's a podcast star just like that, guys.
Just like that. That's awesome. Thanks, Austin.
You got it.